Great. So we have a session this morning that is the brainchild of Katie Pritchard about really being more strategic about how we build community data capacity and what's the sort of portfolio of things that we should be doing or we should make sure that someone in our city is doing to make sure that folks can use the data that and critically use the data that we provide to them. So we're just going to push the whole day by 10 minutes since we have some lunch squishy time on the end. And this will be about an hour and 15 minutes. There'll be a short plenary and then moving to table talk to keep people's energy up. And then then Gabby and Jay will announce the last camp sessions. We come back here for a last idea showcase, and there'll be box lunches here. Right, Leah? In the foyer. Yeah, there'll be box lunches here, so we won't go back upstairs for lunch. And then anyone's welcome to join us for the traditional end of meeting margarita outing afterwards that we'll post on YAP if your flight allows it. So I will turn it over to Paul, and I can keep time for the speakers so they can stay on time.
Perfect. I forgot my air horn, so that's going to be helpful in helping. Hey, everyone. I'm Paul Sorensen. I'm an NNIP partner from the University of Missouri St. Louis, and excited to moderate this panel today around data capacity, building community data capacity. What's your strategy? And the your is like, it's supposed to be welcoming. What's your strategy? Not like, what's your strategy? Like, you're late in delivering your strategy, and we really need you to do it right now. So what we're going to do today is we're going to hear from folks about how they are approaching this question of data strategy across a variety of communities, Atlanta, Charlotte, Pittsburgh. And then we're going to have time for folks to think about what that means for you in your community moving forward. So that looks like a panel session for just half an hour. Then we're going to have a table activity and conversation, and then share a little bit more with folks moving forward. So before we dive in, we wanted to ground ourselves in a common definition of data capacity, and specifically community data capacity. So I think this is really what we're all trying to grapple with. How does it all add up? And so according to NNIP, so this is based on a 2020 resource, Investing in Data Capacity for Community Change. Community data capacity is defined as where people can access and use data to improve the outcomes where they live. So that's what we should be thinking about. Not necessarily what my team can do, what can we do for other organizations, although those are key pieces of the puzzle, but how does it all add up to a community being able to do these things? And so what does that require? It requires access to open data, open data platforms, tools, training, technical assistance, and all of these things I think we can grapple with individually, and they can trade off over time. I mean, for us, we've been engaged in St. Louis with a lot of tornado response work. And one of the things we've been chewing on is when are we data capacity? When does our organization sort of step in to provide that sort of support? And in early stages of tornado response, they're like, we need more people who can set up and manage a database. Can you help? And we're like, yeah, we could do that. But then when do you build data capacity? So in the ongoing basis, who is in the best position to do this? Are the tools that we feel comfortable using the same tools as someone who's doing like really rapid paced work on the ground? And so trying to play with when do we build versus when are we data capacity, I think is another key piece of this puzzle. And then finally, looking at it from the individual, organizational, and collective lenses. So I think sometimes when we're talking about capacity building, a lot of times we're individual, right? So like, how do we make sure people have the tools, people have the skills that they need to do this? But we really should be broadening that lens, right? So if at your organization, look, like not every individual has this skill, but like at our organization collectively, like we have this covered, or we have a partner we can bring in. And especially when you look at collective capacity, right? Like, what does my organization do? Are we in the best position to do it? If not us, who? And pretty much none of us can do all things at all times, even though maybe a couple are like, we want to. So really trying to understand how do all of those things play out together. And I'll flag that there are a number of resources in the YAP that sort of highlight this moving forward, and we'll talk about some of them a little bit more today as well. So, what are we going to do from here? You're not quite up. Each of the NNIP partners are going to share a little bit more about what data capacity or a data capacity effort, initiative, resource has looked like in their community. They're going to have about 7 minutes apiece. Kathy is a timekeeper. And what we're hoping to learn is a little bit more of like, when you think about data capacity, what does that mean for your organization? Give an overview of the effort that you've been working on, although everyone can access a deeper dive into that on the app, so you can, do as much detail as you want. And then what has it taught you, right? What are the big lessons learned that have informed your work moving forward? What do you think may be helpful for the room to know? So, without further ado, Lisa.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Lisa Moore. I'm out of Atlanta at Neighborhood Nexus. So I'm going to be talking to y'all about our data maturity framework/assessment. It has changed names a few times this year. We've landed on framework. We feel like that's probably the best way to describe it. So I want to level set here around data capacity versus data maturity. And so we at Nexus are seeing capacity sort of as how do we manage or understand how you can use, understand, and manage your data systems, and then the maturity piece being like, how effective are you at that? Like, how well is that working for you at your organization? So I started at Nexus back in 2021, and we launched a training program. Primarily, my role was a training program, and we were working on some data primers, really helping organizations understand how to effectively use data. We thought we were going to spend all our time sort of framing it around data as these 4 parts: ask the right questions, use the best data, tell a compelling story, and take action. And so I spent a couple years working on that pretty intensely, and then we felt like we were kind of getting asked to do the same things. As I'm sure you all know, you get asked to do a dashboard, but those conversations just weren't really effective. We weren't really getting at what was actually the struggle in that organization, right? So you're providing a training, you're providing a tool, you're providing a dashboard, but it's not really getting at what the organization is struggling with, and so you're not really solving anything. And so we had conversations last year where we're really like, we need a shared language. We need a shared way of having this conversation with these organizations. So you can come and talk to us about a dashboard. Sure, love it, let's do it. Also, let's get a little deeper about what's really going on here. And so we started having conversations and really digging into the many 5,942 data maturity and capacity frameworks that already exist in the world. And we were like, okay, so what do we want to do that's going to be different? Like, what's going to set this apart? What's going to make this more helpful than those things? And so what's really, from our perspective, that's going to set this apart for others is we wanted to, not for one, we wanted folks to walk away feeling like they had a clear path, a clear strategy that didn't require them to pay money. So a lot of times those tools dead end in a paywall, or they dead end in, and you can solve this by paying us $10,000 for our executive leadership program, and that's just not, one, everyone doesn't have the budget to make that happen, right? And we also felt like there was a gap in the community of who could get their problems solved, right? So if you need $10,000 to have a conversation with someone to solve something, it really left all of our mom and pop organizations out there without a whole lot of resources. So they could know the lingo, they could know the words, they could know the framework and have no idea how to move forward, right? And so this is giving us that shared language, and it's also giving us a way to democratize the access to those resources. And every level of this data maturity journey is letting you walk away with an action and a resource. So the resources tend to be localized, but hopefully you will find it to still be generalized enough that folks across the country can access it. But we are Georgia focused, so most of the resources are Georgia related. And when I'm getting ahead of myself. So what you see on the screen is sort of like how we got from where we started to where we are. And so the frame that says the nonprofit data maturity journey, that's blank on the inside, is where we had kind of come up with, these are the categories that we feel like are important. These are the ones that we feel like are the key ones that folks need to move forward. And then it moves from ideating to emerging to proficient to leading. We had lots of conversation about sort of language and using the word proficient and what it means to be proficient versus leading. And we started there, and we took that giant poster board, that is my hand, in case you were wondering. We took that giant poster board to a lot of meetings. So we facilitate a data breakfast club. We had our first data conference this year, and we just literally carried this giant poster board and had folks put dots where they are and had conversations with people while they're putting their dots up where, you know, you feel like in strategy, which you can't see, but it's the very top left section, you might find yourself proficient or leading, but then when you get down into program design or advocacy really and be like, yeah, we're just ideating, we're terrified about doing advocacy work. And helping folks kind of just genuinely figure out, like, we could be doing really well in one area and really poorly in one area. And then our goal then was to figure out, okay, how do we present this in a way that folks can really understand? And so that bottom portion is an example of what it looks like in the interactive version of this, which is each individual box has a statement that we ask folks to say which of these most resonates with you. And we felt like instead of asking people a bunch of questions, that was the way to kind of make it more about you, right? Like, I feel like this. This is where we are. And then you click on that, and then it pops up with an action and a resource for how you can move from there to the next level. It's been a long process, and I mentioned in one of the sessions yesterday that the NNIP network has been really awesome in helping support us get from, you know, what are we trying to do, all the way into what you all will be able to look at online. Lots of really awesome feedback and support in this process, and we're definitely looking for more. So if you're looking at this and you're like, hey, you totally missed this thing, would love to know that. Share. And I think in terms of the biggest lesson learned along this process, it's really been, we want to make it for the people. Like, we understand that this work is really challenging, and we are not looking at necessarily the organizations that have a resource team and are doing really awesome with everything that they've, you know, you've got lots of people or you've got a giant budget, et cetera. We're really trying to dig into folks who are out here who kind of feel like they're doing the work on their own. I've been referring to them this week as like the reluctant data person. So you've got that hat on in your office, and you also have 4 other hats in your office, and really wanting to make folks feel like this is an easy in. And I may not be able to address all of the things that are related to data maturity or data capacity, but I can address my portion and move from here to here with really actionable steps. Yeah, thank you.
Wonderful. That was great timing. No one had to drag you on, you know, perfect. So we're gonna move on to Charlotte to share a little bit more about your work.
Sounds good. Hi, everyone. My name is Alicia Dahl. I'm an associate professor at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. I had the great pleasure of working with the Urban Institute at our campus to play an important role in kind of understanding what's happening in our community. So how many of you are here representing a city that has great nonprofits? Anybody? Yeah, right? Like, you've been in Charlotte for a couple days now. Charlotte's a great place, and Charlotte has a lot of really fantastic nonprofits of all sizes. This work that I'm going to talk to you about is really about focusing on those small and medium nonprofits, the folks who are maybe operating with a smaller budget, maybe operating with fewer staff. And so what I'm talking about today is kind of a process that we took here in Charlotte to understand what the capacity needs were for those nonprofits. So this was a 3-step process. The first step was doing group level assessment. So inviting representatives from these nonprofits in to talk to us about kind of what are barriers for them in terms of data capacity, evaluation, maybe even as simple as data collection. And so bringing those folks in, doing group level assessment where we put prompts all around a room probably this size in gigantic sticky notes all around the room, gave everybody a pen and a bunch of smaller sticky notes and said, respond. Just respond to these prompts. What it did was it allowed us to be able to gather folks who are kind of up against similar challenges to see what's going on in our community and what the opportunities are for us to build data capacity. So as folks were walking around the room, they're responding to these prompts about data security, data collection, all of these things that we know influence somebody's or an organization's data capacity. For us, it was illuminating to see where the common themes were in our community, right? If we're able to understand what the barriers are for folks in terms of data capacity, then we can come up with some solutions. And we can come up with solutions that serve multiple organizations, which will eventually make our nonprofits and our community network here stronger. So one of the things that I thought was fascinating being part of that process was I was one of the discussants at the table. So getting folks to think about their own organizations, reflect about the work that they were doing already, and the work that they wanted to do. That was the fun part, was hearing like, what do you need to take your work a step further? And so many people in the room were talking about barriers in terms of staff, not having enough people to collect data, or thinking about data as this big, huge thing, and then thinking about evaluation as the monster that's living under the nonprofit bed. And so it was really fascinating to hear how our nonprofits in the area, how our organizations who are doing really meaningful work are held back by this idea that data has to be this big, beautiful thing that you have all this training in. So ultimately, those conversations drove us to the step 2, which was developing a curriculum to help these nonprofits get trained and build their capacity internally. So many of these nonprofits were thinking about looking externally for evaluation support, and then, you know, the price tag comes with that, and it's like, oh, I can't do evaluation. And so building the capacity within these organizations. What was interesting was when we talk to these nonprofit leaders and these representatives, data is all around them. They're collecting so much of the data. They might not have it in a database. They might not have numbers. They might have stories. They might have narratives, but that's all data. So I think that was an important step 1, was kind of bringing everybody in the room and talking about what they were doing, what they wanted to do, and having different kind of social determinants of health represented in that space was really neat, because when one housing organization feels like they're not getting data for their organization, how do we bridge to other organizations that might have a data point that can support their next grant, right? So it was a really lovely opportunity to bring folks together. So once we had all of that data collected, we took multiple months to develop a curriculum that would be accessible in a bunch of different meanings, but the level of content that we were giving, making sure that the evaluation skills we were training them on were going to be good enough to do the work that they wanted to get done, to write the grants, to write really fantastic impact reports. So for us, it was making sure that the level and the delivery of that content matched the needs of our community and those nonprofits. So really being able to gather people and find the power amongst the community to say, okay, here's what we need. We're just gonna move forward. We're gonna figure it out together. And it allowed for more community capacity building by bringing folks together. So we had a couple different organizations represented. Some organizations sent multiple people from their organization. Others had one rep. But these folks came in, and we did three Fridays, full day Fridays of a training curriculum that we delivered with different instructors to kind of spice things up. So 3 different opportunities for them to come in and learn, 6 chapters, so modules that brought them through data collection, organizing, storytelling, all of the things that we know will make these nonprofits stronger in their ability to seek funding and to talk about their impact. So we've refined it. We did an evaluation of that. We are refining it, and we're delivering it again, and thinking about those things like cost of the program, being able to find funding to support more people from these organizations attending and learning about evaluations so they can do it in-house and kind of build up their capacity together.
Great, wonderful. All right, finally, Bob, don't mess it up.
I was 15 seconds under. Do you
Yeah,
get that 15?
you know?
Oh, I'll be okay. Yeah, no, I'm here. I'm gonna try my best, Paul. I'm gonna bring the energy today, though, into the room. So
There we go.
as always.
There we go.
So I'm in Pittsburgh. So we have a number of different capacity building efforts. I'm going to talk about one today, but just to give you a general sense of the types of things that we do. We had a few years ago with our friend Eleanor Tutt and my colleague Liz Monk worked in libraries to build data capacity of librarians to talk about data, and that was our Data 101 series. Liz has done a lot of work to really build capacity among trusted community members, such as health workers, through our Data Ambassadors program. We have a program around youth data literacy where we engage people in conversation about things that are important to them in their lives. So it's, that was all started around a youth behavior risk survey. And just like they hadn't been involved in the process of designing questions or interpreting results. So we wanted to change that and build their capacity there. Liz has done a lot of work bringing art into the practices of data through our Art and Data workshop. And the one thing that I'm here that I kind of took more of a lead on was our Data Literacy for Data Stewards program, which was an effort that brought together data workers from different backgrounds. So we had a lot of people from our local governments. Our project is a partnership with our city and county, so we had their staff involved. And we also brought in a lot of kind of nonprofit organization staff, some people that did work with data and others that maybe didn't quite so much. And we really focused on building capacity to think about data differently and how people apply and manage and use data. So it wasn't so much we're going to show you how to use a tool or a dashboard or anything like that. It was more about how do you think about asking questions about the data that we work with or the data that you're using that somebody else has given you. We wanted to give people an opportunity to reflect on how their work might impact others. We wanted to give people a chance to think about what it would take to institutionalize values like equity, fairness, and justice into their data systems and technologies. And then we wanted to get people to kind of expose and dismantle practices and systems and hierarchies that really amplify powerness and discrimination. And so we had, in the Data Literacy for Data Stewards series, like a 12-lesson cohort. We did them on Zoom. And we had things like workshops on missing data to get people to think about, like, okay, why is data collected? What are the power dynamics as to what is captured and what isn't captured? And think about, like, the kind of knowledge that is never quantified. We had workshops on stigmatization. So how do we make maps that really don't make it so that the communities are the problem, the people in them are the problem? We talked a lot about context and the importance of being able to share context about your data sets so that other people could understand better or better understand how to use those things. We talked more about privacy. We even had a session on dashboard design, if you can believe that. And then we got into stuff like data governance and procurement. So it went really well. And I think across all of our data literacy programs, it's really important to kind of think about what are the ways that you can spark conversations among people about data so that you can encourage critical thinking and confidence building. We like to do things in a very hands-on way, and this is an activity on the picture there of a recent workshop we did that wasn't part of the Data Literacy for Data Stewards workshop, but we had people from the city in the room. And we just wanted to elevate people's own knowledge and stories about the community. So we started with write down where you don't feel safe because of traffic. And then let's overlay that with crash data from the state. And then let's have a conversation about where you might want to see some improvements happen. So it's like that, bringing hands-on activities, leveling power dynamics is really important, making it so people can participate and have conversations with people from their communities or from other communities or from different backgrounds is really important. And so just some of the lessons that I want to share, like from what we've learned broadly, but especially with the Data Literacy for Data Stewards series. You know, you have to think about, what do you have to do before you really think about building capacity? Because if you build capacity for people to just like take the practices they currently employ, if they're harmful, you're just going to lead to more harm. So without talking about how do you make maps less stigmatizing or not stigmatizing, and you just make it easier for people to build maps that are going to make people the problem, you're actually doing harm that way. We like to engage a cohort of people over time so they can build relationships with each other, and we can build relationships with them, and they can kind of feel more comfortable talking about some of this stuff. Bringing people together from different backgrounds is a real hit for what we do, especially in the Data Literacy for Data Stewards. People can see things through someone else's eyes. And then like the key thing too is just incorporating a lot of participatory activities, art as much as possible. Really allows people to express themselves, and it also allows for power dynamics in a workshop to be leveled. So those are just some of the lessons. You know, this was all funded, our initial work, through the Data Literacy for Data Stewards, through a local foundation, the Hillman Foundation, so we were grateful for that too. So that's us. So you can find me or Liz, and we can talk more about data capacity. And is that all right?
That was great.
Yeah, you did great.
Okay, so you heard a lot of great examples. Some of it overlap, some of it distinct. You're probably thinking of the overlap and like, oh, we're doing things like that and a little bit different at our organization too. And so what we wanted to do next was really give folks an opportunity to reflect individually while you drink your coffee. What are we doing in our organization around data capacity? And then talk together at your table, so we're not gonna move rooms or anything like that around what that looks like. So we bump things back, right, by 10 minutes, although maybe only 5 minutes. Let's just do the 5 minutes. There we go. So for the next 10 minutes, maybe until quarter till, until 9:45, there should be these sheets in the center of your table. What they have on them are a number of NNIP approaches to building data capacity. Thanks to Katie and others for helping put these together. And what we want you to do first is think about what this looks like for you at your own organization, or even just things that you personally prioritize, because at your organization, people may prioritize different things, and that's great. So don't overthink it. There are spaces for you on the bottom to add additional things that you do that you would say like, hey, this is actually a data capacity approach that we really think is effective. Use the back too, there's plenty of space. And so we'll take until a quarter till to do that independently at your table. And then afterward, what we encourage folks to do is talk to the folks around you. If you're at a table of just a couple and want to combine tables, go for it. We're not going to force that. But what we really want to do is make sure people are then talking together about what's working with us, what's working with you, where do we go from here, and have some questions to guide you through that process. So for the next 10 minutes or so, prioritize filling out the data inventory on your own until a quarter till. And then for 20 minutes after that, from 9:45 to 10:05 or so, encourage you to talk at your table. We'll leave these questions up here. If everyone is done early, you can start talking, and we'll pop back in a bit.
And I think I put enough on every table, but if you're short of handouts, there's extras up here. So raise your hand if there's not enough somewhere.
Great. Oh, and please note, if there's a star next to an item, that means that there's already an NNIP resource that is created to help you with that. So note that as you think about what your next steps are.
Nice.
Great. What?
Are we ready to go?
I think we're ready to go.
We're ready
What?
to go.
We're ready to go.
We're ready to go.
We're ready to go.
Yeah.
So
You're
thanks,
bringing the
everybody.
energy. All right.
I'll also
Okay.
just do a plug before we start.
Yeah, please
Katie's
do.
gonna do a camp session after on community data capacity. So if your conversations are good, you can keep them going in the next session.
Yes, camp session after this. If you really want to dive into where do we go as an organization, great. One thing too, if for some reason you're like, I'm just gonna like leave this on the table, but there's a lot of good information here, please give it to Kathy. Because NNIP is really trying to figure out where to go. And if you want to take it with you, great. If you're maybe like, oh, I wrote a lot of confidential information on here, you can just email Kathy your thoughts separately. But if you want to share what you wrote, please take a picture, email it to Kathy. Everyone has her email. She wants to be bothered about this. Great. Because I think the next steps are really trying to figure out how NNIP as a network continues to support data capacity across cities. I'm wondering if folks have a couple thoughts to share, anything that really rose to the top. And I'll just go to each of these questions really quick to see if we can do some cross-table learning. So, does anyone want to share approaches to data capacity building that you host or contribute to? And I would say like your favorite one, like ones that you're like, we have seen this work really well in our community that you want to lift up for the whole crew. Not everyone at once. Yeah. Y'all talked about something.
Oh, there's a hand in the
Oh,
back.
hey,
we go.
Great.
We talked about the data, the office hours, or like help desk. Oh, no, it was office hours. And we kind of came to I personally came to a conclusion listening to everybody that this seemed to work when people do it with a very specific project. It's not like, hey world, here's an open office hour, come and talk to us, but really when there's a really specific project or even a specific product, like we're launching this product, and we want to provide some support for how to use it, and also developing an FAQ off of that, which is what Allison, I think, said. And so I thought that was a really interesting, I hadn't really thought of it in that kind of a closed office hours setting.
Cool. Great. Another in back, great.
At the Community Foundation of Louisville, we host a quarterly, or depending on how enthusiastic I am, bi-monthly civic data meetup and lunch. That's kind of a mix of like the data people as well as data interested nonprofit, government funders. And the thing that people like most is never the speakers, it is the introductions where everyone goes around and says, what's your name? What hat are you wearing? What is the coolest thing you're working on? And if you could magic the answer to any data question, what would it be? And a lot of times, somebody has the magic that somebody else wants already in a dashboard map, data journalism project, et cetera.
Great, wonderful. Great things to elevate. Well, how about the flip side of that? What of the things on this list or things that other folks were discussing at the table that you're like, oh, we don't do that, but we really should? Like, what stood out as something that would be high impact to you that you're not currently doing? This is a learning environment. Great. Yes, great. Yeah.
Or do you feel so overwhelmed you can't think of anything else to
Yeah,
put on your
all
plate?
of
Is
it.
that the...
Could be a little bit of all of that. Hi, everyone. My name's Anissa, and I am still resonating with the impact challenge that we were given so early on, and I think that's something that would have a lot of impact, and I would definitely love to see my organization explore that some more, maybe really thinking about what the impact of our products are. I think there's been a long-standing trust with the data center in New Orleans, nonprofits and entities, but I think maybe asking again might be really cool. So that's what I was thinking about. I'm still thinking about impact. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Looks like a couple more. Oh, no, go
Yeah,
go
there
for
we
it.
go,
And
everybody.
then, yeah.
Victor from Milwaukee. There's a question that I think that I've been hearing more and more lately, and it's like, what's your biggest challenge, right? And it's always about like funding, right? Funding is my biggest challenge. And I think that it would be a missed opportunity for us not to think how we can build or have capacity building programming in within organizations, and that makes us more proactive and less reactive, and have more control of our growth. The need is there, right? So I'm sure you talked about it in your tables. You talked about how like, oh yeah, people have all these questions. Oh, and they don't got the time, and they don't know how to do it. So I want to challenge us to think of like, to not think transactionally and just say one training is going to be enough, or like one interaction. I think, you know, one of the areas that I'm thinking about is how do I go on a journey with a group of people, whether it's an organization or multiple people, right? And really think about it from the systems perspective. Systematizing the approach, having the curriculum, which I would love to talk to you about that, right? I love writing curriculum, but then, you know, like, I'll be really honest, like, there's capacity issues within my organization too, right? So that I have to take care of. So I think there's a lot of collaboration that we can do. But I do think that's the opportunity for us to continue doing the amazing work that we're doing, to grow our efforts. And the best way to expand our reach is not just by hiring new folks, it's by building that capacity so they can, you know, you create a community of learning, and then, I don't know, that's how you expand as an organization. So to me, I think one of the things that we're not doing, and I don't think about any of these ideas. I'm not creative like that. I just do a lot of listening. And leaders have been coming up to me and saying like, hey, what about like a data for leaders? And I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. All right. And I hear about it a lot of times, and I'm like, okay, this is something that needs to happen. I've also thought about that beyond training, you need individualized support. Every organization is different, so how can we create like a coaching model, a group coaching model or something, right? So I think there's a lot of opportunities here for us to like collaborate and actually like expand our reach and grow our efforts and be more sustainable. And I do see capacity building as that opportunity.
Great.
So since Paul said this was a learning environment, safe space, being vulnerable on behalf of my colleagues here, we did not know what data dreams were, and we wanted to see if that is something that could be explained.
NNIP is the data dream. We are all participating in the data dream, and I also don't know.
Let's hope your data dreams aren't nightmares.
Yes, data nightmares. Great, yeah.
In Milwaukee, we have a Data Dreams program. Every year on our Data Day, we award to nonprofit organizations basically a pro bono contract where we work with them for 6 to 9 months on a project that the idea is it's supposed to be a capacity building project, so helping them develop metrics or build a system that works for them. And we've been doing it for a while, so that's what Data Dreams in our context is.
Wonderful.
We have it written up as an activity. We'll put it in the YAM. There was another.
Hi.
There's another. Oh yeah, go for it.
Hi.
Is there somebody over there?
I'm just going to start talking. I was thinking about the first two questions and about building data capacity. And it seems to me that there's not really a shortcut. And we've had a lot of success when we've sat with partners at their tables and then taught the partners and their regional tables how to use and understand data. And I don't know if there's a way, I'm just thinking about what Victor said around coaching. I don't know if there's a way to shortcut that where you're trying to build capacity. So, you know, we've met with folks over and over again, and then by the time our engagement is through, then they have a really good understanding of the data in their area, and their partners have a good understanding. So I think that's much different than CAM does monthly trainings where you can hop on and learn how to use our tool, and that's something different than building data capacity. So I think the kind of relationship building and building trust. So we're coming from USC. A lot of organizations in Los Angeles don't care for us, right? Because we're this big, rich university. So having to get into those spaces and get them to talk to us and learn from us, and we listen to them, takes time. So I don't know if there's a shortcut to that.
Great. A couple more.
Hello, everyone. Asha Ellison from the Charlotte Urban Institute. And so we're kind of going to run it back to something that we think that we're doing relatively well. One of our things over the past, I would say, 2 years has been we have become a data partner for the Charlotte Journalism Collaborative, which is a collective of local media agencies here. And so we work together with them as media outlets and universities and research continue to be under scrutiny, to provide data support for the stories they tell of community, and to help them interpret data as well, so that we can continue to discuss the community's challenges and help to find solutions using the data that we have. And it's great to be in the room with them when they're discussing what they want to talk about. One of the things we recently did was like a 5-year reflection on where we are as a community post-pandemic. And they came to us and they said, hey, what data do you have that can help us to tell the stories of where we are, where we've made progress in areas where we continue to struggle? And so that was really a great opportunity for us to be in the room and say, hey, here's some things that we see based on the data that we have. And so that has been something that we're doing very, very well.
Wonderful.
That's cool. Steal that.
At the risk of ending on a slightly downward note.
We'll bring it back up after. Go
Okay,
for
good.
it, Amy. Yeah.
Bob, I'm going to need you to bring your energy after I finish.
Tommy's gonna.
I'm here,
Tommy's
yeah.
gonna be positive after.
Thank you, Tommy. We had a talk about building data equity capacity and what that looks like at this moment in 2025.
Anyways, in Atlanta, something cool that we do that's like, it's not a shortcut because I don't think the impact is huge, but it starts a lot of conversations, is really just using our newsletter to not just say like, here's what we did last month, but to like share a few hot takes, but really helping organizations think about how to approach data, especially in these times. So we've gotten really good feedback from that. Our circulation's gone up to like 3,000 now, so we get a lot of positive feedback, starts a lot of conversations. We get invites into other conversations from that, but just like being really intentional about how we, use our newsletter to get visibility and keeping it short and tight and fun and all that. That's been useful for us.
Great.
Sign up. I get it.
Cool. All right. Do we have one last?
I think we have.
Positive enough?
Oh, Jesse,
Two?
yeah.
Okay. We have a couple more minutes. Yeah.
I didn't think Amy's comment was all that much of a downer. to be
No, it
honest.
wasn't. No, it was a good question.
I expected a lot worse when she
Yeah.
framed it that way.
This isn't something that so I'm interested in advisory boards, which we talked about a little bit. We do them often for individual projects to great success. I think they're really valuable. But I would love to learn from folks who are doing, and I know the Charlotte folks are doing this, like sort of more broad organizational advisory groups or boards to get more like constant feedback and as a part of relationship building.
I could talk to you about failure in that regard.
Yeah.
Lots of lesson learned.
Last one.
Yes, Ben Williams with Data Driven Detroit. So we have a lot of great partnerships. We do office hours, and we have partnerships with other nonprofit incubators where we're able to kind of offer those services and support. But since coming on for the last 9 months, I noticed that sometimes we overwhelm people with what we offer. And sometimes the way in which the information is delivered can kind of turn people away because we're often highlighting what they don't do and what they don't have. So how are we able to be more inviting? So within my work and my background in marketing, I've been exploring ways for us to kind of use social media storytelling to be able to create things that are more engaging. I don't know if anyone's familiar with The Pudding. It's a really, really cool, what is is it called, video essays, and they use a lot of data points to be able to do storytelling. One that I just thought was really, really cool was about how we gender animals and the ways in which like our background innately makes me think a frog is a boy. But they use data in order to do that. So we've been trying to find really unique ways to take some of those methods and incorporate it within the tools that we already offer so that those that need us but don't know that they need us feel welcome in our space. And that's been a part of my work. That it's really difficult because it's expensive to be able to create graphics and imaging and then have someone that is actually going to work the social media and train it. But that's something that I've been looking at to be able to build more partnership and for people to recognize that we can support them.
Great. Wonderful. Okay. Well, that's fantastic. There's a lot to build upon. I'm sure we could spend a lot more time here. You can spend more time later in camp sharing more about data capacity approaches. And I just want to highlight how many folks kind of raise things or like, the best way to build capacity is being in conversation with folks. And making sure that we're committed to that long-term trust building. What are you trying to work on today, and what does it mean about what you work on tomorrow, across a variety of settings. So I think these are things that we're doing already reflexively. How do we institutionalize them? How do we make sure we can fund them? How do we make sure they continue with a lot of community partners who are looking to build capacity and internally as well. So
And
what's
Paul,
next?
I think there's a next step slide I put
There
on
is.
there.
I was
Oh,
getting there.
look at that.
But go for it, Kathy, if you want to.
Oh, no, I forgot.
Don't worry.
Yeah.
So what are the next steps? NNIP is looking to continue to build out, hence like collecting the sheets or collecting photos. So what does it look like? Framing page, help desk guide, convenience guide. So things that bring some of the existing resources together, continue to build those out, engaging all of us in building data capacity moving forward. And then also additional sessions that you will all hear about soon, both at next year's conference and in the meantime. Anything else, Kathy? No?
Great.
Great, perfect. Well, thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, the panelists.